So it's possible. Up until recently, I was the only guy in the RV community that didn't understand how auto changeover regulators worked. I've recently kind of figured that out and have an appreciation for how they work and why they're actually more useful than I really thought they were. I thought I'd make this video just in case there's other people out there sort of in the same boat that aren't really clear on how these things work, how to use them, and how to get the most out of them. Now, just stepping back a bit, on our previous camper, which was the Jayco Hybrid, it didn't have an auto changeover regulator, but it was still pretty simple. Essentially, you have two tanks, and there's a couple ways you can manage the propane. The first way is to just open one tank at a time, and when that tank runs out, you close it up and you go and open the other tank. It's no big deal, really. And then when you have a chance, you take the empty tank off, you go get it filled, you bring it back, and it's ready for when the second tank runs out, and you switch back to the first. The other way to do it, and I don't really know if there's a lot of people that do this, I didn't do this, but you could open both at once. And basically it'll draw from both tanks at the same time until both are empty. That kind of gives you the benefit, I guess, of having a longer time to go in between having to take action to fill propane. The downside, and it was a big downside for me, was if you open both up, you might be able to go a little longer between having to do anything with your propane, but when you're out, you're out. Both tanks are empty, and you don't really have a lot of prior notice if that's going to happen. Depending where you are, that can be pretty inconvenient. So I always went with option one. I always kept one propane tank only open at a time. That way I always have a pretty good idea how much propane we'd have. I always know I have one full one and at least part of another one. And when it ran out, you know, the job of coming out and turning one off and turning another one on wasn't a big deal. Wasn't a big task. Nothing I thought would greatly improve my life if it was an automated task. So when we got this new trailer, found out it had an auto changeover regulator, I wasn't really all that excited. It didn't seem like that big a deal to me until I really found out how they work and why they're useful. So let's talk about that. Now, our Jayco with the non-auto changeover regulator also had one of these little levers, but all it really did was serve as sort of a reminder as to which tank you're currently using. So if I was using this tank, I'd turn it this side. If this tank went empty and I turned this one on, I'd turn it over there. And that would remind me when the time came for next camping trip, I'd know which one to turn on because I'd know which one I had been previously using. When we got this camper, I kind of assumed that's all this thing did as well, but it does a little more. Also has this funny gauge here that I didn't really know what that meant. So for the first few trips, I used this system just the same as I did with the Jayco. I put this one over here. When this tank ran out, I'd change it, I'd turn it over there, and it was no big deal. But now that I know how they work, they're pretty cool. So here's what you do. Let's say this is your tank that you're going to draw from first, on the right. So you move this to the right to point to the tank that's in use. You turn both tanks on. This will go green, and what the green means is that this tank, if this is the tank you have this lever pointing to, if this is green, it means it's drawing from that tank. When that tank runs out, you're not out of propane. What it'll do is the regulator will turn over and switch to the left one, but it'll turn this red. And what red means is you're not drawing from the tank that you have this turned to. And it's sort of your indicator that you need to do a couple things. One is turn this over to show that you're drawing from this tank, and then take this one off and get the propane filled. Okay, so what makes all that useful? Why care about that? There's a few ways that comes in really handy. We do a lot of dry camping. A lot of our sites don't have any services, and we kind of prefer that sometimes. Those sites are often perhaps a little out of the main traffic areas of the campground. Sometimes they're a little quieter, and sometimes they're even a little more picturesque if you can get out to sort of the main three-way hookup sites. But what it does mean is we're using propane for our fridge and our hot water. And those are not systems you want to have fail while you're out hiking for the day or in the middle of the night. There's nothing worse than waking up and having no hot water for your shower and having your fridge warm and your freezer defrosting. With this, there's no reason that should ever happen again. Another good example where this comes in handy is, let's say you're camping early in the season or late in the season and you're relying on your propane furnace to keep you warm, especially at night. There's nothing worse than having to get up at 3 a.m. and go outside and change your tanks over. And we've had to do that a couple times. In fact, the last camping season of 2018, I had to get up and go out in the snow and freezing rain and change the tank over because the furnace turned off in the middle of the night. Another great benefit of having one of these is that you can remove one tank and still use the other one. Now on the Jayco with the non-auto changeover regulator, and we found this out kind of the hard way too, is if we take one tank off and open the other one, it'll actually spray propane back out the connection for the tank we just took off. That's not good. With the auto changeover regulator, you can take one off and still use the other tank and have this hose, this connection just hanging there, and it won't spray propane back out. So that's what we learned recently. That's why we really like our auto changeover regulator. I hope this helped somebody out there and answered any questions you have. If you have any other questions, put something in the comments. If I don't know the answer, I'll go try to figure it out. So if you found this useful at all, please give the video a thumbs up. We'd love that. If you'd like to hear more, you can hit that subscribe button. We have all kinds of videos on traveling within the Maritimes, and we've done a couple of these sort of RV tip ones, and we'll probably do some more. But anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.